this is Matt once again. What about 10 videos? Another paid request, this time from Efree. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is the last of the Bloodfist movies. Yes, I know there were 8 of them, but the requests were for the first 5. And it's been a fun time watching these. Now, granted, I don't have Bloodfist V on DVD. I have the first 4, like this is 3 and 4. 1 and 2 is over there. But they are on YouTube if you want to give them a watch. Once again, we have a different director. Once again, we have Don the Dragon Wilson starring. Once again, we got Roger Corman producing. Once again, these films have nothing to do with the films before and after other than the title, and Don's in it because, like I said, in the last film, Don played a character named Danny. In the 4th film, he played a character named... No, in the last 4th. In the 3rd film, he played a character named Jimmy. In the first 2, he played a character named Jake. But even then, there's that... I know, same spiel I've said before. But Bloodfist V Human Target in 1994... I would say, honestly, for me, my opinion, of the first 5, this is the weakest. This is one that... The first 4, even the first one where I had some, but there was the 80s charm still. And the underground fighting tournaments and the curiosity of how Don got his start into films, and the ending was, oh, well, this guy's actually the bad guy. And this one, though, number one, there's a depressing note. Steve James is in the film. I love Steve James. Steve James from American Ninja 1, 2, and 3. This is a guy that deserved to be a bigger star. By this point in his life, he had, I want to say it was pancreatic cancer. And this is the last film he did before he passed away. I mean, I couldn't really tell he was sick. It's just that he didn't have a lot to do. Maybe that's why. I mean, maybe it wasn't as vibrant as the previous films I've seen him in, but, been like 4 or 5 years since the American Ninja, 1, 2, and 3 days. At least, when did American Ninja 3 come out? Was that 80? I think it's sometime in the 80s. He had done other films too. He was in I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, which is a fun film. He was the star of a couple films that weren't really that great. Riverbend, and there's one with Reb Brown that I can't remember what it was called. And I didn't even know Steve James was in this until my friend Efree told me via email, oh yeah, Steve James is in this. I'm like, he is? Wow, okay. So, it was at least interesting, but sad to see Steve James' last performance. Like, he's not in the film much. He has 2 little brief fights, and the first one's more of just a brawl. 30-second brawl, and then the end, very disappointing. I didn't, maybe because of his health, he couldn't do a whole lot. But I'll get to that. Also, the plot of the film, it felt kind of like a regurgitation of Bloodfist 4. But while Bloodfist 4 had all these twists and turns, who can he trust? It was more appealing to me that Don played just a regular guy, in that case a repo man, and the twists were more fun. Like, oh my God, it's the attack of the psycho babysitter, and what, the nuclear triggers are hidden in chocolate bunnies. Like, it was more fun, entertaining, laughable, however you want to put it. This one felt more like a slog to sit through, because this one tried to be more of the Bourne Identity, before the Bourne Identity, to be fair. It tried to be a bit like Total Recall, which I'll get to that near the end. And this one, there are fights in it, but they just felt kind of routine, redundant, pedestrian, and I don't know, maybe because I had just seen Bloodfist 4, so I felt like I was almost watching the same movie, but not as entertaining. Because this one, like, he starts with Don in silhouette, and he has this goofy-looking wig, this long hair, and he gets shot in the head by Yuji Okamata, Chosen from Karate Part 2. He would later be on Cobra Kai. I'm like, oh, it's Chosen, but he's really given nothing to do. He pops every once in a while and never puts up a good fight against Don. He always gets his ass kicked easily. So he's in a coma, and I'm like, is this going to turn like Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal, or he's got to escape? No. Instead, this girl named Candy pretends to be his wife, and you find out that she's with the bad guys, but she's a hooker that was just hired to pretend to be the guy's wife. They just get him out of the hospital. And there's Yuji, I would say Chosen. There's Chosen, the other guy. They did their asses kicked pretty quickly. The girl who played Candy, she was there. I could take her or leave her. Indifferent. I know some reviews said she was annoying. To me, she was just indifferent. I didn't like her and I didn't dislike her. And while the plot in the fourth one was kind of fun, oh, his buddies did wipe down this repo place, and then this person he knows got killed because these are cops, but they're not really cops, and then there's James Tolkien as the FBI. Here, it tries to be over. This tries to be even more convoluted. Because they go to this pimp played by Steve James. He does this 15-second brawl with Don, and then he gets shot and killed. And then there's a chase and the cop at the NSA, and then Don's told that he was an undercover agent and looking into this Chinese smuggling, dealing with plutonium, and your cover got blown, and then you got shot in the head, but you have amnesia. So it plays with the whole amnesia plot. This guy has amnesia. But then, as soon as they appear, the NSA agents get killed. Denice Duff, again, is the hooker. She's, again, alright. Just a boring identity. Again, it came up before the boring identity, but just that type of wannabe plot. Amnesia, I don't know who he is. Am I undercover? Am I working for the bad guys? Am I working with the good guys? So on and so forth. And while I was disappointed with Gary Downs and how he was used in the second film, those fights still turned out sadly better than what Steve James got to do in this one. So while both have disappointing fights, Steve James is more disappointing. And even more sad because this is his last film. He's given really nothing to do, even in terms of acting. Like I said, the fourth one has some goofy, fun quirks to it. Here, not so much. There's not a lot of fun, goofy quirks or anything in between. Instead, the fights, I think another reason why I thought the fights were more meh is in this one, for some reason, Don decided to do a lot more flips. I don't mean like somersaults. I mean like those Steven Seagal type of takedowns. It's almost as if he was watching Steven Seagal and said, okay, that guy's getting more popular. He did Under Siege, and 94 was what, probably On Deadly Ground or something. He's like, let me try to do some of these. And it's more like grab a guy, take him down. Take a drink how many times he takes a guy and throws him down, or uses his body, or uses his movement, uses his arm, and uses him to push him to another guy, uses him to take him down. Like a lot, to the point it was noticeable. And that got old really quick and repetitive. It doesn't help that you have this guy Joe Sun, who's one of the evil henchmen. Now, it's not the movie's fault because this person turned out to be a piece of trash. He was also the guy who fought Bolo Yun in Shoot Fighter 2. Which doesn't, I mean, those are other films I do like, the Shoot Fighter ones, where Bolo Yun's a good guy, and he's the sensei to... Oh, one of them is, what's his name? From, the Bully and Karate Kid, and he was... I cannot remember his name. I got my phone here. I gotta check real quick. Shoot Fighter cast. Billy Zabka. They're one of our one of our two leads in both films. So that's kind of the fun with Shoot Fighter, on a quick note, is that you get people who are usually villains, Billy Zabka and Bolo Yan, and they're the good guys, so nice change of pace. But anyway, I would say both of them I like more than this one. But he was the bad guy in that. What he did was he tortured a 19-year-old lady and also sexually assaulted her. I hate saying that shit out loud because it's just, to me, it's disgusting. People who do that, disgusting human beings that don't deserve to live, in my opinion. But it's not the movie's fault, but it's like, oh, I get to see this guy again, and why is this guy having more to do than Steve James? And his character's name is Beefy. He's big and fat. Yeah, he's a piece of shit fat fuck who tortured a 19-year-old woman, and I think is still in life in prison. I say that because I don't know if he died in prison, hopefully, but so yeah. So it just goes into this kind of boring plot. Amnesia, can't remember who I am. Tries to use these twists and turns. Spoiler alert. The girl gets kidnapped. He goes to find her. There's this one bit where they torture her with this acupuncture, and one goes like under her eye. So that was a little unique. She has to tell that he's at a motel, but he's not there, so bad guys are looking in the motel, they leave, Don's following them. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fights in the movie, but this one just felt, because I didn't give a shit about anything else going on. I didn't give a shit about the plot, I didn't give a shit about his amnesia shtick. I didn't really care a whole lot about Denice Duff, like, overall indifferent. Again, by that point, Steve James, for the most part, is out of the picture. The other people, the villains, the supporting characters, nobody I recognize except a piece of trash like Joe's son. I just didn't care about anything that was going on. And then why did I say it reminded me of Total Recall? Because he saves a girl, shoots the who you think is the main bad guy. He's just a bad guy. Well, what happens is, and this is a bit convoluted, Steve James pops up. And apparently he works for the NSA. And Yuji Arakamoto, you're chosen from Karate Part 2, the other guy, they were working for him too. And apparently, and I thought this was going to be like another twist where they're telling him something, but you find out it's fake. Apparently, no. Don the Dragon Wilson is the bad guy. As in, no, you're really the bad guy. And we used that you had amnesia to... I don't know how to explain it. Where you said you were undercover for the NSA, but you actually were working with the bad guys. They even show him a video that he mentions that he killed his wife, or hint he might have killed his wife. And there's a bit where Don and Steve James are talking, and Don goes, "I don't buy it. Too perfect." And then Steve goes, "The hell it was." And then shows him the tape. That's exactly, they ripped off Total Recall. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. They completely ripped off the scene in Total Recall. Because you remember in 1980 Total Recall, there's Arnold and the girl, and there's Cohadian. Cohadian explains it, and Arnold goes, "Bullshit." No, he says, "I don't buy it. Too perfect." The hell it was. They explain what Mark Ironson was doing, this guy was doing. And then shows him the tape of him and Cohadian as bosom buddies. Here, Steve James shows him the tape of Don smiling at the thought of killing his wife. And I'm like, I didn't like that twist. I thought it was pretty lame. And then you get the idea that okay, well, he's don't go to jail, and she's like, oh yeah, and the hooker works for Steve James. She's an NSA agent, and Steve James is like, well, you know what? What do you do? Sleep with him? This is he's a bad guy. This and that. So it's kind of hard to blame Steve James's point of view in a way, but then he comes in the jail cell with his two buddies and goes, we can't get you in the trial. We need to keep our business secret. And for some reason, when they take him to a warehouse, they don't just shoot him. They decide to tie him up, and then they decide to try to put his head into a propeller. As what? He tripped over his dick and fell on a boat propeller? What, do you think he'd gone fishing and a shark came up and decided to do a Jason Voorhees and put his ass in the fan? Is the fan by Michael Dudikoff? You know, sorry. I didn't understand why that, and so Steve James is a good guy, but he's not really a good guy, and then Don Dragon's a bad guy, but then because he's not a bad guy. I didn't care for all that. I thought that was really lame, and it's trying to be too complicated for its own good, and just sucked a bit of the fun out of it. Don gets away, kills the two guys, including Chosen, with barely any effort. Has a fight with Steve James that's lame. Because Steve James tried to show moves, but then he showed like close up shot. I don't know if that was to hide Steve James's sickness, illness, I don't know. And then there's not even a resolution to the fight because the girl goes in and wounds Steve James. Shoots him. And then Steve James' character doesn't even die. He's wounded like the leg, and then Don kicks him in the face, but there's nothing that says he's dead. That means he must be alive, and he'll wake up soon, and then what, go after them? So then the girl takes Don to this car, and they got a load of cash, and I guess what, they're going to go somewhere? Because Steve James is like, you don't throw away your life. So I guess she is going to go with Don to, I don't know, Jamaica, Jakarta, where the fuck? And I'm like, what? So again, they go with the whole trying to be convoluted, twisty, turning like Bloodfist 4. So it doesn't feel as fresh as the film you just did previously was trying to do twists and turns, and I thought was more fun. Yeah, the Gary Daniels was disappointing, but Steve is even more disappointed to me, and that makes me more mad, that makes me more angry and upset. The finale, I'm like, not just the blunt fucking ripoff of Total Recall with that scene, but just, that works in Total Recall because it was handled well, because you had Paul Verhoeven, and you had the bells and whistles and effects that worked a lot better, and Cohadian did the big comeuppance, and Arnold's give these people air. Much, Jerry Goldsmith, you have a lot more to it compared to this. To me, this is easily the weakest of the Bloodfist films. Of the 5, is the one I really don't like. The first 4 I could watch. This one I would never watch again. Which is ironic, because the first 4 are the ones I have on DVD, and this is the one I don't. It was on YouTube, but that's just my opinion. So, yeah, I wasn't big on this one. But the first 4 I liked. As for 6, 7, 8, who knows, maybe one day I'll get requested them. If not, no worries. Thank you once again, Efree, for your generosity, for your friendship, and for letting me, get a chance to watch some of these and enjoy a good chunk of them. So finally give my butt to sit down and watch these. So, I know. And honestly, after watching these, I do appreciate Don the Dragon Wilson more as an action star. I still don't put him on the level of Van Damme, or early Steven Seagal, or Jeff Speakman, but I could say I'm a fan of Don the Dragon Wilson. Cybertracker films, first couple Bloodfist films. I know he did one with Andrew Dice Clay, and I think Vinegar Syndrome released a Blu-ray of it. I do want to pick that up someday. Whatever It Takes, I believe it's called. Ring of Fire 1 and 2. I think there's a third one. I don't know if those... I don't even know if any of these films have Blu-ray. I think the first Bloodfist got a Shout Factory Blu-ray, but it might be out of print. I don't know if the sequels did, and if not, that's a shame, because, again, I think some of these sequels were better. But I'll stick with these and keep these. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.